We continue now at the top of Daf Gimel Amud Beis in Meseches Zevachim. This is Zevachim Daf 73b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara said that if you have karbonos, you have animals that are karbonos that are mixed up with other animals. Let's say it's mixed up with a shor haniskol, a shor that is supposed to be stoned. It's aser bahana. So in such a situation, we say that the shor haniskol is not batel, and essentially everything becomes forbidden that's in the mixture. And on the previous Amud, the Gemara asked, well, why can't we just pull out one animal at a time? And we'll say, kol de parish, meruba parish. Everything that gets separated is separated from the majority. We follow majority. And the Gemara says that you can't do because you're pulling them out from a kavua, from a fixed situation. And there's a general rule, v'chol kavua kemechsal mechsa dami. Anytime you have kavua, anytime things are fixed, that's considered like mechsal mechsa, which is 50-50. It's considered a situation, again, where we do not say kol de parish, meruba parish, that anything being separated is coming from the majority. As Rashi says, again, dechol kavua kemechsal mechsa dami. When you have kavua, it's kemechsal mechsa, and that is not a solution. And so the Gemara continues and says, Ella nichbeshinu denaidi v'neima kol de parish meruba parish. Rashi explains, nichbeshinu denaidu means yachuf osam sheinodu. You force them to move. Delola have a kavua, then they're not going to be considered like kavua. You put them in a situation where they're no longer fixed in one place, and then we should be able to say kol de parish meruba parish. Whatever separates is separating from the majority. And the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rava, Rava says, Gezerah. The reason why we don't do that is we have the following Gezerah, the following decree. Shema yavo yud kohanim b'vasachas v'yikravu. Maybe 10 kohanim will come at once and they will offer it. And Rashi explains, Amar Rava, Rava says, Gezerah shema yavo yud kohanim b'vasachas. It's a decree that we're concerned maybe 10 kohanim will come at once v'yikravu and offer it. And Rashi says, Kasal Kadai Dechashta, right now we think, Dechayish, that we're concerned, L'shema Achar Sheyikochem Echad Echad At Sheshachtu Yud, we're concerned that after he takes them one at a time and slaughters 10 of them, V'heim Rov, and now they amount to a majority, Yavo Yud Kohanim V'yizruku Demehen, so now 10 Kohanim will come and they'll throw their bloods, they're going to apply the blood, V'yaktiru Emurein, and they're going to burn the sacrificial portions Ke'echad, and the concern is they're going to do that all at once, V'yefshel Etzamseim, and we're understanding right now that efshel etzamseim, it's possible that it's going to be exact. It'll all be at the same time. V'hashta deshtachach dekoriv ruba b'vasachas. Now, if the majority are all being offered at one time, v'iko lemechash. So now we have a concern, isura beruba isa, that maybe the isur, maybe the one that's prohibited, is within that majority, because that's now a majority. To bishlama ki moshe chad chad. We understand, let's say he's doing one at a time, umakrev kama kama, again he brings the first one first, and then the next one, ikol then already we can say, techol chad dekarev beheter, that each one is being brought, and it's permissible, meruba parish, it's coming from the majority, v'isure hanoah bahani depaishiu, and then we'll say that the one that's aser bahanoah, that's with the remaining ones, dehaveruba lagabe, because again, that's a situation where it's a majority to that, aval hashta, but now, dekarvi ki hadadi, if everything's being brought at once, lo have a hani depaishi, ruba lagabayu, so the ones that remain are no longer a majority, and that's why that would be a concern if they're all going to bring, again, a majority, a rov, all at once. And the Gemara continues, Amar le ahume Rabbanan l'Rava, one of the Rabbanan said to Rava, Ela me'ata, but according to that, Megisa asira, would it be osir if it's all in a big basin? Rashi explains, Ela me'ata Megisa asira kilomar, what the Gemara means to ask is as follows, if when they actually took the animals to offer, they did it one at a time, and again they were moving the chalchad yamar to meruba parish, and we say that each one is meruba parish, separates from the majority, then v'shachtan v'kibel daman b'magis, let's say then they would slaughter it and they would receive the blood in a basin, b'chazaka shu kasher, and there's a chazaka already that it's kasher, based on kol de parish meruba parish, so chozrim u'mitzdarfen hashchutin lios rova le'asr, do you think at this point everything now combines and becomes asr again? Of course it's not going to become asr just because it was mixed in this megisa, in this basin, and so therefore you can't make this argument that there's a concern that when the 10 kohanim together, they're going to take what comprises a majority and they're going to apply the blood and sacrifice the sacrificial portions. That wouldn't be a concern. Once we assume there's a chazaka that it's kosher, so then it would remain kosher. And so the Gemara continues, Rava responds, Mishum Shema Yavo Yud Kohanim B'vasachas, the actual concern is, maybe 10 Kohanim are going to come at once, V'yikchu, and they will take the animals initially all together at once. And Rashi explains, Umeshani, then the Gemara answers, Mishum Shema Yavo Yud Kohanim Bevas Achas V'Yikchu. The actual concern is not that they're going to apply the blood later on altogether or burn the sacrificial portions altogether, because again, once it's kosher, it's kosher. The concern is that at the time of the taking of the actual animals, 10 Kohanim will take at the exact same time, and then Mitochat Harovis, if they take 10 animals from the mixture at the same time, V'Kevan Deruba Naspi Ki Adadi, if it's the majority all at once, Ikol Mechash Disura Beruba Ise. So now we really do have a concern that the one that's Asur is among that majority. That is the concern. But the Gemara continues and asks, is that really a concern? Basara Kohanim Bevas Achas Miefsher, 10 Kohanim all at once at the exact same time. Is that even possible? Why would we be concerned with that? Rashi explains, can it all be done at once? I understand the throwing of the blood, the burning of the sacrificial portions. That can all happen at the same time. But the actual taking of the animals, if again he's making them all move, can it be so exact the way they're taken that you don't have to go chasing to find each one to get each animal? And so therefore again that should not be a concern. And so the Gemara continues and says, Elo Amar Rava, rather Rava says, the reason why we can't say Kol de Parish, Meruba Parish over here to have all the animals move, and then we'll assume whatever came from the majority, is Mishum Kavua. There's a concern that maybe they're not going to be moving, maybe they will be fixed in place, and then again you're going to have a problem of Mechsa al Mechsa. You don't apply the rule of Kol de Parish, Meruba Parish. Rashi explains, Elo Amar Rava, Gzeira Mishum Kavua, Dilma Asi Lemimshach, Ulemizvinu Chad Vechad Kilo Naidi. Maybe you'll take them when they're not moving. Kavua, that's the situation of fixed in place. Again, then it's going to be like 50-50. Then you can't rely on the fact that they came from the majority. That's why that is not a solution. And the Gemara continues on. My Rava says, Hashta de Amri Rabbanan, now that the Rabbanan say, Lo Nakriv, that if you have this mixture, you're not allowed to bring the animals as offerings, as karbonos. So Nakriv, so if the person does bring them as karbonos, Lo Meratzi, they will not be accepted. Rashi explains, Imakriv Lo Meratzi, if they are offered, they will not be accepted. Di idchile midrabanan, because they've been pushed off on a drabanan level. Once they're pushed off from being karbonos, Veshuv Eino Choser Venira. So at that point in time, once they've been pushed off, they cannot be considered kosher again later on. And Rashi continues, V'afalpi, and even though shahaksherin shebehen ru'uyin lahakrava, that there are among the animals that are fit to be brought as karbonos, hoel v'nidcha milahakriv lechatchila, since you weren't supposed to bring them lechatchila, they were pushed off from being brought, machmas hapsulan hamuravin bohen, because of the disqualified ones that were mixed among them. So we say nidchu legamri, they're totally pushed off. The havalu kipsulan, they're considered to be disqualified. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei Rav Huna bar Yehuda l'Rava. Rav Huna bar Yehuda asks Rava the following question from a Mishnah in Meseches Kinin. Chatos shenesarva ba'ola. Chatos gets mixed up with an ola. This is talking about by bird karbonos. V'ola shenesarva b'chatos, or an ola gets mixed up with chatos. Afilu achas beribo, even if it's 1 in 10,000, yamusu, they have to die. They cannot be offered. Yamusu kulan, they all die. Ba'med devarim amurim b'kohen nimlach. Now when is this true? This is all said by a kohen who's coming to decide whether to bring them or not. Aval Kohen she'ein nimlach, but let's say the Kohen doesn't ask what to do, and he goes ahead and he brings all of these birds as karbonos. So asan lemalo, let's say he does them all on the upper half of the mizbeach, and that would be like a bird ola. So mechsa kosher, mechsa pasal, we'll assume half are kosher and half will be disqualified. Lemata, let's say he does them all on the lower half of the mizbeach, like a bird chatos, mechsa kosher, mechsa pasal, again half will be kosher, half will be pasal. Achas lemata v'achas lemalo, let's say he does one below and one above. So then Shnei and Psulos, then they're both disqualified. Shani Omer, because I say, perhaps Chatos Kreva Lamala, maybe the Chatos was brought on the upper half of the Mizbeach inappropriately. Viola Kreva Lamata, maybe the Ola was brought on the lower half of the Mizbeach inappropriately. And so the point over here is that after the fact, even though this is something initially you're not supposed to bring these birds as karbonos, but after the fact, apparently they are accepted, and that goes against what Rava just said above. And the Gemara continues and answers, Elohakaman da'amar balechaim nidachin. Rather, in one case, we're following the one who says that living animals can be pushed off. Once they're pushed off, they're not brought. And the other one follows the one who says that balei chayim are not pushed off. But the Gemara continues and asks, Hare Shchutin, but what about if they're already slaughtered? Tulakuli Almani Dach, and there everybody agrees that they are pushed off. And Rashi explains, Chatos shenesarva ba'ola ba'ofos katani. Again, this is by bird karbonos. The leslu takanta b're'iyah. There you can't have the regular solution we would have by animals, which is to let them graze until they develop a blemish. She'ein pidyon la'of. There is no redemption for a bird in terms of bird karbonos. Mechza kosher mechza pasel. Again, if he brought them after the fact, so half will be kosher, half will be pasel. Umevi chatos ve'akrivena lamata. So in a case again where the olas were kosher, where the ola was kosher, so he has to bring another chatos, and he'll have to offer it on the lower half of the mizbeach. In any case, with tuyov to l'Rava, Rashi says this is a refutation of Rava. Mehada katani mechsa kosher, because half of them it says are kosher. Ta'ahacha, because over here, iluasi limluche, if he came to us to decide what to do, amrinan leil lo sakriv, we would tell him not to offer that as a carbon. Kediktani yamusa, like it says they should die. She'ein makrivin lepsul zeb yadayim, you're not going to bring this disqualified one actively mipnei takonas chavero, just to solve the issue with the other one. V'chilo nimlach v'hikra, but if he didn't ask what to do and he brings it as a carbon, katani deha kil chasa kosher, it says that whatever was brought properly is in fact kosher. V'hachanami haksher and yiratzu, and so therefore over here also by the mixed up animals, those that are kosher should in fact be accepted. And the Gemara then answered, Hakaman de Amar, again, one follows the one who says that Balei Chaim are pushed off, the other one says Balei Chaim are not pushed off. Plugser of Yehuda v'Rabbanan, he b'seder Yuma, this is a machlokes in Meseches Yuma. But then the Gemara asks, V'harei Shchutin, what about if they're slaughtered? To L'kuli Alma, there everybody agrees. Kol Hanach de Pligi b'Balei Chaim, that whole machlokes by live animals, Modu b'Shchutin de Nidach, and everybody agrees that if it's slaughtered, it gets pushed off. Utznan b'Masisin, and we learn in the Mishnah, and this is coming up on the next Amud, and this is a Mishnah later on. Im korev harosh v'chulu evori balmum ve'evori olos tamimos harbe shenesarvu. You have limbs of balmum, of an animal that's blemished, and you have limbs of olos that are not blemished, and they get mixed up. Rabbi Eliezer says, Im kodem shenimlach bo hikrev echad min haroshim. Let's say again, before he asked, he ended up bringing them as an offering. Yikrevu kol haroshim, he brings all of them. Ve'afilu lechatzchila, even lechatzchila he does that. He's allowed to do that. To tolina nisura ba'osa shakarav rishon, we assume that the one that was brought first was the one that was aser. But over here, Teilu asi bereishal imluche, again, if he came to us to decide, so Amri le, we would say to him, Lo sakriv, don't bring it. Techsiv vishe lo sitnu mehem, like it says in the pasuk. V'chi lo imlich, but when he doesn't ask what to do, machshirinan hanach de perishe v'lo amrin yidchu, we don't say it gets pushed off, we say it's kosher, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ayin Dalid Amud Aleph.